Oh, that's easy for me, man. See, I'm already prepared with this question.
Is Tintin?
Oh, good guess. Right, so Tintin and Lord of the Rings are my top three, but there's one.
Harry Potter.
Well done.
Yes.
It's the
Smashed it. You can tell I listened to the podcast.
Hey, you get 50 points to Slytherin.
Top 3.
Awesome.
I think I'm actually a Hufflepuff.
All right.
For some
Okay.
reason.
Well, I'm a Slytherin. How dare you?
Yeah, man, I'm not buzzed about being a Hufflepuff. Not gonna lie to you.
Oh, well, then again, Hufflepuff is great. I actually might put this in the podcast because this is important information. So everyone who's tuning in, like, the intro hasn't even started yet and we're already talking about the greatness. We're talking about Harry Potter. That's right.
It's got me done.
I know. You are getting recorded, by the way, so...
You're like, so good, man.
He's like, God damn it! Ross has caught me.
Oh my god, you had that live.
Well, that's the thing, so... Oh, actually, I better actually start the intro. Well, I think that'd be a good decision. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing a different introduction today. We're doing something different. We've got a legend. We've got the one, the only. We've got Kieran Goodson on the show. How you doing, man?
You're right, Ross. Thanks for the warm welcome. I don't know who this legend is that you're talking about. I've yet to meet him.
You're like, God damn it, Ross. Why so cringy?
Anyways, how you been?
Oh, I'm great. I don't know. So everyone, by the way, I'll just give you an important update. So I'm a bit burnt. So I feel so much energy right now. Maybe I know it's like such a contrast to say, but I'm a bit toasty.
Those UV rays.
Oh, exactly. See, same mindset. I would be saying the exact same thing. Great. By the way, everyone, if you guys don't know of Kieran just yet, as always, so as a channel, so we're closing on 5,000 listeners. So all 5,000 you know what to do.
5,000, Jesus Christ, already.
We're growing, but then again, that's accumulated across like 10 platforms. So it just sounds cooler if I say 5,000 without saying the 10. But I've kind of just exposed it. But anyway,
list them off, Ross. Which 10 platforms are you on?
Oh my gosh, you know the routine. Right, it is. Man. So, the first one, we've got Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, and last but not least, we've got Stitcher. And I just realised I didn't even finish the sentence I was going to say. So all of you make sure to go give them a follow. As always, I put everyone who's a guest on the podcast, I put their links and social media on the back. So Kieran, he pretty much uses everything. So Twitter, Instagram, ArtStation. Is there any other ones you want to throw in there, mate?
LinkedIn.
Oh, that's a good one.
That's pretty much everything.
Awesome.
Mainly just Twitter, Insta, and LinkedIn, and obviously ArtStation when I eventually post anything.
What? Oh man, you've already done the main job. You've got your foot in the industry, so it's like it's okay to have a wee bit of a break.
Yeah, I don't know, 5 months. 5 months now. It's
Is it 5 months?
Getting there. I'm itching. Yeah.
Gee whiz, I didn't realise it was 5 months. Oh my god, right, okay.
Rocking in my chair, going slightly insane, deciding what I want to do next.
It's always the hard part. But then again, in saying that, it's been when did I post the train? I think
It's been
two
months.
Yeah, 2 months maybe. Like, are you working on anything at the moment, or is it just purely just relaxing at the moment?
No, well, I'm never really relaxing. Because I've moved fairly recently for work. Obviously, I'm about 6 weeks in now, I think.
Awesome, congratulations.
So I only got yeah, thanks. I only got my internet set up a couple of weeks ago. So I'm just kind of like piecing bits together bit by bit. So next up to sort out is my gym membership, and
awesome.
then every day I'm kind of like sketching out my keyframes and seeing what works for me, and then I'll start cracking on with production and stuff like that.
Awesome.
My next personal project.
Yes, it's all about getting a good routine. Like, it's actually great that we've actually gone into this, because this is actually, I think it's like the fourth point that I was going to bring up. It was like daily habits and stuff. I know it's kind of cliche, but there's a lot of great things. Like you just said there, for example, the gym. It's one I preach a lot on the podcast, because it's one thing that I do every day of the week, and it's just a thing that I think. I know this probably sounds crazy, right? But it'd be so awesome, right? In like, say if you're doing an animation or art degree, there was like a gym part of the course. Like you had to, like, all artists had to go and do a workout. I'd be like, Oh my god, that is awesome.
Provided you do it in mocap, so you can practice all the rotations and compound lifts and stuff.
Exactly, I like the way you're thinking. You need to get the good reference.
There you go. I'll patent that. I'll start my own university.
You've got an idea. You're sorted, man.
Yeah.
But it's all when it comes to just. Oh, by the way, everyone who's tuning in, obviously the podcast is a weekly series. If you're wondering, it's I bring on a range of different guests from all backgrounds. So like we're saying, we're talking about mocap. I've brought on animators before as well, so make sure to go check all them out. It's like routine is crazy because there's so many people. I was a big culprit of this myself. I'm not going to assume, but I technically am. But like most artists aren't necessarily they don't have the best habits. In general, regards to maybe there's not like a healthy routine, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'm not sure, like for example, the main thing when it comes to the podcast is student education, and like for example, just tell us a wee bit about yourself, like before we even get into the big nitty and gritty and so forth. But just tell us a bit about who are you exactly? Obviously, I've already said quite a bit, but it'd be great to just go into a wee bit of depth.
Yeah, my name's Kieran Goodson. Where do I start? 22.
Mm-hmm.
I was born in Cambridge in the UK, and I grew up in Essex. But for basically my whole life, I've been entertained by games, and having older brothers, I was introduced to things like GTA, and like Manhunt, and all those horrible, crazy PS2 era games that I probably shouldn't have been playing. But it kind of, just like we were chatting about before, stuff like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, like games were a part of growing up for me, and I've always been kind of hooked on them.
That's great.
And so, I mean, I've always been interested in film as well as games, and I think that's had a big part to play in, later along the line when I came to choose like what subjects I wanted to do at school, and then eventually what I wanted to do at uni. I've always been creative, but I never took art seriously when I was growing up.
Okay.
It was always just kind of like a muck around lesson in a way.
Yeah.
Like I just kind of do the bare minimum and just have fun with my mates, but like I was always creative, and I think like the first, one of the earliest moments I realised this was during like an ICT lesson in secondary school, and like part of this work that we had to do was we had to take like 4 or 5 existing YouTube videos and cut them up and re-edit them into something kind of cohesive.
Right.
And I ended up editing like a montage kind of video of he's an ultimate frisbee player on YouTube. He's called, I don't know what his name is now. I've completely had a mind blank.
Ultimate frisbee, that's awesome.
But he does like trick shots and stuff with frisbees, and I thought it was just the coolest thing, so I cut that up. But I really fell in love with like video editing after that.
Yeah.
And then I took media studies at A level, which is all about directing and using cameras and kind of learning about composition and lighting and like the groundwork of the film industry essentially.
Yeah.
And then obviously when it came to uni, I was like, well, I do enjoy all the film stuff and the editing and the cameras, but games have always been my passion, and I had taken computing at A level specifically to go down that route. So that's what I did, and I ended up going to university for it.
Awesome. No, that's great to hear. I really like you went in depth, because when it comes to, like I say it every time, I know it's cliche, but when it comes to the podcast, it's the different aspect of story, and stories to me is the most important part, because there's so many artists. Like there's one person who's been subscribed to my channel for quite a while, and the one thing he always asks questions in the comments, and I completely respect the guy, and he's always asking me like, how do you do this, what's your advice on this and that, and he always brings up about like how to get motivated, and like he's struggling with a bit of like trying to find the right project at the moment, but it's when he hears it from like all these different guests, he's slowly began to say in the comments that he's got more confident, and like hearing all these different perspectives are so important. And like you said, like your childhood, like when it comes to like passion and stuff, like childhood is it plays such a big part, and it's such a big role overall when it comes to, like, I know it's obvious, but it's like finding who you are, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it all clicks together. Like, people always, like, it all joins the dots, but there's no direct path. Like, everyone's is different. And like you said something actually that I was really interested in. So you did like a lot of editing, and so when I was in college, so my first year, so I went to a college called Aberdeen College, and we did like sort of similar thing. Like, we were doing like, how could I describe it? Like, we'd put like audio to, like, we'd like get a soundtrack, and then we would edit things, and that always gave me the feeling of story. And like, that's one thing I've always thought that's really cool about your art station, is the fact that I know this is such a small thing, but a lot of people I don't think will notice it, but you always add Premiere in your pieces, because obviously that's what you use. And like, I use Premiere all the time, and when it comes to environment art, the one thing I think I wish I saw more of was fly-throughs. I'm not sure what your thoughts are on, like, obviously you have an amazing fly-through. By the way, everyone who's tuning in, make sure to go check out his recent piece. It's so awesome. He's also wrote an article as well on 80 level, so make sure to check it out. You'll see it on the screen right now. But yeah, it'd be great just to hear about your perspective on I guess the editing aspect and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately it comes down to, you know, the renders are the most important things. I don't think you should ever take priority with the video unless it shows off an extra skill that you can kind of like add to your, you know, your skill set. I think fly-throughs can be done really badly, but they can also be done really well. I think if you go onto my ArtStation, my first piece, I've still got it on there. It's called Sunset on the Savannah. That was kind of like my first environment art kind of cinematic. And most of the shots in that are disgusting. I detest that art piece, but I've left it on there because there's the first establishing shot I thought I nailed really well. And it also shows that I'm kind of interested in cinematics and stuff, so I like to keep it on there.
Definitely.
But I mean, if you can, I don't just want to leave it at cinematics can be done badly, because that's quite harsh, and that sounds way more negative than I mean it to be. But I think you have to be careful with camera movements and what you show off in the background of your scene, because you might actually end up showing some of the weaker sides of your scene, whether you have realised it or not. So I mean, for this Savannah piece, I was ambitious as usual and ended up trying to make half a bloody universe. And I show off, you know, kind of parts of the background which haven't had a focus on, but they have you know, they've been presented in this video, and that's maybe not the best thing to do. The benefit of these still renders for the ArtStation is that you know what you're showing off, and you can target that a lot. But I think one of the main mistakes that people make is zooming the camera around all over the place, and then that can really kind of ruin the atmosphere that people spend so much time pouring their efforts into, and it's a shame. I think you have to be careful.
Of course, like, definitely, like, the one kind of thing that when it comes to just filming in general that I think frustrates me is when people use too many shots. When they could just, like, obviously it depends if they're working with a soundtrack or whatever is in the background and stuff, but you have to really think about it, like, all together. Like, it all has to fit together, it all has to make sense, there has to be a story, there has to be logic, there has to be there has to be atmosphere built, like, it all has to work together as one. And through obviously the great thing about what you're saying here about the mistakes that you've noticed is that it's like these mistakes are vital in terms of the learning process. So if you guys are listening in and you're thinking about giving your environment a fly through, I highly recommend giving it a shot. At least try it out, because
definitely, for sure,
it's something different.
I don't mean to dissuade anyone at all.
Oh no, of course, no. I know what you mean. It's just like there's so many, like, I guess on ArtStation, like, the common thing is just the beauty renders, because it's so easy. Well, it's more easier. Obviously, it's not easy, but it's a lot easier to, I guess, have just a still image. There's like to me, like for example, I've said it in quite a few podcasts. Like growing up with me, Spielberg was one of my main things, or main interests, and really understanding how filming worked. And I understand that obviously, like we're obviously in the game industry and stuff, but it's great to really get the perspective from a film side as well. Like too many people, I guess, get stuck in that comfort side on one area, but they don't acknowledge the fact that games are films as well, or like maybe they overlook certain things.
Well, yeah, you have to realize that cinematics and cutscenes in games, that's a specialization in itself. Like you can split environment art into props or materials, or even foliage artists, or terrain artists. You can lighting artists. You can split them into many different avenues. And cinematics and cutscenes are one of those. But I'd still highly recommend people give it a go. Maybe just put it towards the end or in a blog or something.
It's like these things, like you have to try it to know. And like obviously, like everyone gets stuck in a comfort zone, but you also need to realize that getting out of the comfort zone is the best way to learn. Like you mentioned one thing that I think would be really cool to obviously bring up, and I think it's kind of obvious, and it's so one of the things I always ask my viewers is like, what do they want to get from the guests? The main thing that everyone wants to know from you is about foliage. Everyone was like,
foliage.
Yep, they want to know like, the process. They want to know all your ins, outs, your secrets.
No, wrong person. Wrong person.
Well, that's the thing. So when it comes to learning, this is why I do the podcast, and you've probably heard me say it many times. Everyone has a voice. I understand. Obviously, a lot of people, like say for example, there's a senior artist listening in right now, and maybe they might disagree with things I'm saying. Like that's okay. But it's if they're listening and they think I'm saying something wrong, I prefer them obviously like commenting on it, commenting on it, just so I can address it. But everyone has like a voice, and everyone could say like, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean coming back slightly to it. For me, for an example, I'm not a foliage artist, and that recent environment was my first time kind of creating trees and shrubs and stuff.
Yep.
And although it's a fairly big organic environment, I've tried to nail the mood and the composition and the lighting way more than I've spent the effort to present my props or have a really strong focus on these trees, because that's just not where I'm strongest at.
Yeah.
And if you're trying to get into the industry, you want to market yourself in the best light as possible. So if you're a wicked modeler, like you happen to model this batshit crazy train piece, and you're trying to get a modeling job in the industry, then obviously you're going to show off your modeling. But if you're slightly weaker at materials, then you'll probably have less on that on your portfolio. And the same thing goes for cinematics, I'd say.
You perfectly just described me, so thank you very much. My texturing is my biggest weakness, so thank you. it's texturing. Oh, like it's one thing. So I'm working on a project at the moment, and texturing is just the thing that I just like. I love it, but I need to really start like honing in on it, start understanding it. But like I know obviously maybe foliage isn't something that you want to maybe go into depth about, but maybe I guess the best way for me to ask this is, what would you say is like the hardest part about doing foliage for you, like, or what was maybe the biggest wake up call? Does anything come to mind?
I mean, aside from the technical side of setting up the leaf shaders and stuff in Unreal, the best way to do foliage, I think, is stick closely to your reference and make probably 3 or 4 variations of your trees or your plants or whatever.
Okay.
That way, it's different enough from asset to asset, and obviously you can rotate and scale stuff, so you get a lot of mileage out of a handful of assets.
Awesome.
But you need to really break down what you're referencing and studying. And funnily enough, I was messaged by someone asking about how I approach foliage, and I said to them, well, if you're modeling a tree, then you think you know what a tree looks like, and everyone kind of in their head draws the kind of like the curvy trunk, and then like the Marge Simpson kind of trees at the top, the leaves and the shapes. When actually you should probably break it down into 5, 6, 7 different parts. So maybe you'd you'd take some really detailed trunk references in terms of textures and shape, and then maybe you'd take a separate mood board and spend time looking at the root structure, and then you'd take reference and start looking at how the branches split, and it's going to be different from tree to tree or plant to plant, depending on the biomes and what kind of weathering systems that they're in and what they have to adapt to, and the flora and fauna the ecosystem that they're involved with. So you really have to understand what you're trying to make, down to okay, so I know the roots look like this, the trunk looks like this, the branches look like this, an individual leaf looks like this, then a cluster of leaves looks like this, and then an overall kind of silhouette of okay, when the light hits it from this side, then that you can get the kind of like the volume of the tree and the shape and the shadows in various lighting situations. So I think foliage in particular is so hard to do.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's you like I said, like you think you know what it looks like, but in actuality you don't until you study them very in close detail. And again, like I didn't for my environment, and I think that probably is one of the weakest parts of it.
Because for example, speaking of environments, so I think the reason, one of the other reasons why I wanted to bring up the foliage thing was because that's my new project. So this is the first. So normally this is one thing I don't recommend, but so I've always been one of those people that do one project at a time. I've always been one of those people that when I start a project, I always finish it no matter what. I've never not finished a project unless it's rough sketches for a class or something that's not required to be finished, if that makes sense. It's just my mindset is I've always had to finish it. It's just the way I have to do it. I understand there's a lot of artists that start something and they don't finish it. Maybe it's the loss of passion, but I think it's just because I've always made sure that I've made the right decision of what I choose to make. But when it comes to the foliage aspects, so I'm making this I'm making two environments. So one's hard surface, and then the other one's fully foliage, and it has a hat and so forth in it. And the biggest thing that bring back up your point that you said, the reusable aspect. So I was watching you've probably seen it, or you've probably watched it yourself, but I'm trying to remember his name. But it's a guy from Naughty Dog, and he does a series. I'm not sure if it's with CGMA. It's with somebody anyway.
Anthony Vaccaro.
That
Modular environments on CGMA.
That must be the one, because
he did that Madagascar scene or level.
It's
Was it that one?
It must be, because so basically what he said. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's he used 3 or 2 rocks. I think it was even 2. He used 2 rocks the whole time, and what he did was he just scaled them and squished them. Obviously he had the high poly in that, and then obviously he fixed the low poly after that. But he just kept stretching everything, and then kept placing it just to save so much time. And it was crazy the outcome that so many of his students had. So there's one awesome student. I'm forgetting names like crazy today, but there's one student who made this a beautiful foliage piece. And no joke, I generally think he said, or I think he even says on his art station, he only uses 5 assets. And I was wow, gee whiz, that's it's a whole other ball game. But to be able to hide that, to hide the fact that it is only 5, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, foliage, it seems like chaos. Walking to any forest or park.
Mm-hmm.
It's nature at its finest, where you can't put a pattern to anything. Everything seems visually busy, but at the end of the day, we're still making games. You can't have hundreds of artists making plants. You have to be as efficient as possible and get the most out of what you have. So
definitely,
I think it's important to, especially with foliage, to try and keep things modular and manageable.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. I'm really glad I wanted to cover that, because there was a lot of people asking that kind of questions, and I just wanted to make sure that I got them answered. Right, so now on to the main part, obviously, of the podcast. So every time I'm doing the podcast, I always ask the 4 same questions. So obviously I like to get I change it up a wee bit as we're going along, just to vary it up. But as always, man. So what do you wish you learned when you were studying at university? Does anything come to mind? Obviously, there's a lot of common ones, but it's okay to say that, so fire away. Or does anything else new that maybe pops up?
I wish at university I learned more of the workflow and the pipeline of just generic making games. I mean, I took a games technology course,
Okay.
so it's a Bachelor of Science degree, so it wasn't an arts degree at all. So it was quite broad based in terms of what they covered. So it was mainly programming. There was like a mathematics module. There was AI programming and a bit of design and a bit of 3D modeling and animation, and a bit of like user experience, kind of like design, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was about like affordances and just kind of like studying what it would be like to be a user of, not just stuff for games, but for everyday items. So how useful is this design for a handle compared to this one, for example? But nevertheless, yeah, I wish I learned more about the pipeline and workflow. For me, it was a bit different to probably most people's journeys because I knew I wanted to be in games, and I think even after my first year, I knew I wanted to do 3D.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously that was only a minor part of the course. And so, coming out of university, it was like, okay, so 3D, which direction do I go in? And it was kind of like discovering bits and bobs of the pipeline as I was kind of researching and building my portfolio. But I never really knew in what kind of order they went in and why we do certain things in certain orders. And I didn't even discover substance until after uni.
Really?
Like
Right, okay.
that wasn't taught at all.
Wow, right, gee whiz.
Like we were texturing we were texturing just by plugging bitmaps into 3ds Max
Yeah.
diffuse kind of thing, like or just using the I think they have default like kind of ArcViz materials.
That's mental.
But yeah,
didn't realise
I
that.
mean, I wish we'd done kind of like, because you can still kind of be broad base and cover quite a lot. So I wish we'd kind of had some experience with maybe 2D sketching and a bit of concept art, and then cover the 3D modeling stuff, which we did. High to low polys and unwraps and UVs, and then texturing, and then integrating it into an engine with proper light maps and LODs and collision meshes and stuff. But I can appreciate why they didn't, cover that, because it wasn't an arts degree. So
Mm-hmm.
I
That makes
think
sense.
to as much as I want to discredit them, I really can't, because
Yeah.
it's a science degree. It was mainly programming and design stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
um, so that was kind of quite hard for me to come to terms with at the end, because it felt like, oh, thank God, 3 years of hard work. Like, all right, I've got my degree. Let's go and get a job. Oh, hang on a minute. That doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's
I have
completely
to build a
different.
proper portfolio and get my name out there and start doing art.
Like, I'm really glad you went into depth about that because, like, it's crazy. So, there's actually like another question I'm going to base this around, but before I get into that, it's like, it's crazy the amount of people that say once they finish university they find they find out that they're still miles behind the requirements, if that makes sense. So like people, like so many people still get such a reality check or a wake up call once they finish university. And like I understand that university has well, I personally think it should be designed to get you a job. Like you haven't if you're paying a certain amount of money, you should be being provided with a certain amount of skill set. Some people on the podcast have argued that universities are purely designed just to find your imagination, your career path. But I don't know. I've always felt strongly towards it should, at least in the final years, ought to really prepare you. But I understand that, like for example, myself. So it took me 2 years. So I can't say anything just yet. So everyone who's tuning in, what I can say is that good news is happening, or good news have just happened for myself, and I'm looking forward to sharing that news with you. But to cover the point that I'm trying to make is it took me 2 years to find that news, and it's all about, I don't know. I wish like for example, like the other question I was going to ask you to cover like this point that we're discussing was like is there anything that, like, if you had to teach environment art, like as a maybe a university teacher, like what would you teach? I understand obviously you've just started in the street, but is there anything that you'd be like, wow, like I wish I got taught that? Like obviously you've said that like all these different things, like obviously like levels of detail and so forth. Like one of the main ones with me was trim sheets. Like I learned that from Tim Simpson, and like I understand that obviously like it's all down to how you research things on the website, on like Google, etc. But it'd be great if I learned that in uni.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. If I was to teach environment art at uni, I would obviously cover the main technical basis. So, you know, I think composition and lighting need to be in there. Like fundamentals, you need to know about values and lights and color theory and shape language and everything, because I think that's so important, and that's particularly from a level design perspective. Look at Twitter's a brilliant example of this, because if you're involved with any devs, particularly level design or design devs on Twitter, they're constantly sharing screenshots and breakdowns of games from 10 years ago, 20 years ago, let alone today. And it all comes down to the same kind of stuff. It's still shape language and guiding the player and placing things in certain positions to evoke a bit of mystery, or to tempt players in certain directions. And I think art plays a part of that design aspect for games. But I think artists should know it nevertheless. I would also want to cover soft skills, and I think that's one of the best things about uni is it's a great place to meet like-minded people face to face who are into the same kind of thing as you. And for many students who are like aged 16 to 18 or you're younger, you might not you might have mates who are into games but maybe not into making games or doing 3D in your spare time and stuff like that. And uni is kind of like a euphoric place where all of a sudden you've got 30, 50, 100 students around you that are all kind of dig what you're into. So I think it's brilliant to develop soft skills alongside the technical stuff, because when you're in the industry you need to be able to know how to socialize, and you need that. I think you need that kind of maturing stage in between school and full-time work, where you know how to talk to people and how to approach various situations and how to deal with tough, kind of like tough, crunchy, worky periods. Yeah.
Do you think? So when you finished uni, how did you feel? Did you feel like, obviously I understand that obviously you were like, I'm time to go get a job, but how did you feel? Like on the social aspect wise, were you like, right, I feel confident, I'm ready, I like interviews, I'm sorted? Like what was your sort of mindset when you when you finished?
Well, I've always been kind of a mixed bag. I can sit in a room for 8 hours and do 3D on my own, no problem. Like a bit of music, a podcast, whatever.
Awesome.
But on the same side, I do enjoy socializing and chatting to like anyone, chatting to various people, like especially people who are interested in what we're interested in. I can kind of delve into both. I can get a nice balance.
Yeah.
I think some people might struggle if they've not had lots of experience, socially, I guess. I mean, it's
of course
some people don't have the soft skills, and when it comes to interviews especially, you need to be able to kind of get across that you can work in a team, and sports, like we've said, is important because they develop the same kind of set of soft skills that you'll need to rely on when it comes to making decisions in the industry and leading teams and that kind of thing.
Because so one of the interesting things that helped me, it's cliche, but a lot of people I think overthink it. So to me, I've always made sure all the time to surround myself by the right people, and this is, I don't know why I haven't said this on the podcast, but it's like, so because obviously, obviously I'm very sporty, and I'm very I don't know, I love a good chat. I talk non-stop, and I like helping people and stuff. But I always feel like a lot of people tend to maybe put themselves in a bad spot, or they choose a situation that maybe, I don't know, a way just to get them out of a situation. Like I think when everyone who's listening, it's all about one decision could then tailor off like so many other decisions. Like it could have like a domino effect. Like if you hang around with a certain amount of group of people, then you develop certain habits from them. I'm not sure what it's called, but there's like you know what I mean. It's like if you surround yourself by positive people, you get more positive. You surround yourself by negative people, you get more negative. And I've always been one of those people that I just can't. Like I struggle with when people are like making excuses, or like when people complain. But I also, I'm also very like if someone is going through a hard time, I'm always the first person to kind of like go and help them, because I understand how they feel. Like that's just the way I am. But if you're in a situation right now and you're maybe trying to find like for example, when you start uni, it's always a daunting thing at times, because it's a new environment, there's new people to meet, and you're trying to obviously get to know yourself more. Like there's lots of questions, because obviously you're still young when you go to uni. There's lots of things that you're trying to get answered. But the main point I'm trying to say here is just, obviously talk to everyone, get to know people, get to know the teachers, and just do it slowly though. If you are a bit shy, take your time. It's a process. It's like, for example, I said in the last podcast, so I work on a till, so it's my last week, so I can't wait. So one more week of doing tills, freedom. But my main point I want to say here is that, so when I was first starting serving people in the till, I was shaking, I was nervous. But that's part of the journey. That's part of the learning curve. Like that's so important. Like so, I'd be like holding a bag or like packing all the stuff, and my hands would just be shaking like crazy. They're like, "Oh my god, what's wrong with this kid or this guy? Is something wrong with him?" And but naturally, through repetition, you get better.
I think younger people in particular benefit a lot from those kind of like the cashier jobs and waitressing and stuff like that. I mean, from 16 I had a cashier job for a couple of years, and then I worked in a bar/restaurant. So I always think, I know I'm introverted,
right?
But you know, having those kind of jobs kind of pushed me to not only develop the kind of independent side of it, where you're making your own money, but also, you know, be in those kind of uncomfortable situations where you might not be having the best day, you might not want to be talking to people on the till, but you know, you kind of learn to deal with those situations, and you take the best when it comes, kind of thing.
Awesome. No, I'm glad we went to that, because it's something that I think so many people still overlook, and it's I like to keep bringing things back just to foundations, because obviously like there's so much things about art that we could talk about, but until people learn how to believe in themselves and explore the different things, they're not going to find out what they're capable of. So it's just a journey, and like obviously everyone who bring on the podcast, like you can tell like the common one, like a lot of people are introverted. If you know what I mean, like it's common, it's okay, and there's nothing wrong with it.
I mean, we're into films and games. We're all like a nerdy bunch. We're all kind of geeking out about these things.
Like,
and, yeah, we're not the most social animals, are we?
So... that's the thing. Is like, I can't say that for myself, because I don't know. I'm very. I think you know yourself what I'm like.
Yeah, I think you're a gregarious example of our breed, Ross. I think most of us, you know, we want to sit in the corner and draw our art, and then when we're finished, turn around and present it and say, "Hey, look what I did." But you know, the talking to people in between is, I think a lot of people, including myself, can work on that.
It's like artists in general are just like, what is this thing talking? This is not. We don't know of such thing. Like presentations. Yeah. This is the main thing I bring up all the time. We don't do presentations as artists. By the way, yeah. By the way, anyone who's listening who's a senior, I wasn't addressing me. I mean, just in general, I like presentations.
Yeah, right. Presentations are a good skill that my university in particular, they really drilled in, you know, getting us to do presentations every, you know, 4 weeks, or you know, at whatever stage our project was ever in. It was like, right, 2 weeks time you got a presentation at the bare minimum. You know, obviously we had deadlines and beavers and assessments and stuff. But that was always wicked. I think that helped a lot of people doing those presentations and standing up and learning how to present yourself and your work in a good manner.
Like, you have to be able to talk about well, it's just great to be able to talk about your work. Like you just said there, like the most important thing that, like, the reason why I do this podcast is because we're geeking out about art. Like, it's like I get a chance to talk non-stop to an artist about geeking about art. Like, what's better than that? I'm sorted for the day. It's I think it's just like, when it comes to presentations, it's I don't know, like, I understand it's like there's a pressure, or like obviously you get put on the spot and stuff. But at the end of the day, it's talking about something that you're passionate about. Like, you should be like when it comes to choosing projects, obviously you should choose a project that you enjoy, because then if you're enjoying it, you naturally come across as more confident because you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, and if you're more crafty, then you might not be passionate about the project that you're given at uni, but then you might spend even more time creating a better presentation, and it might seem like you have an amazing piece of work when actually, probably technically, it might not be as good as some other people. But because you've sold it and marketed it in a particular way, lecturers and other students might be blown away. And I think that's, again, coming back to it, it's those are the soft skills that you need to make it in this business, I think.
You've mentioned something that I've not actually brought up. Oh, I'm really awesome you said that. So you said, so basically, oh gosh, my mind's about to, am I losing this point? What am I going to say? Oh gosh, it's gone. Oh, it's always, I hate that when it happens. I'm not even old as well. Right.
We're talking about presenting yourself and marketing yourself in a good way.
That, perfect. Thank you for saying that. So when it comes to, so this is a very interesting situation that I came across, and I think it's quite common. So it's pretty much like, I'm pretty much just reiterating what you said there. But so I applied for a job. When was it? Oh, January time, and there was this artist that applied for it, and this artist got the job, and this person's really great at talking. And he said to me very honestly that his art wasn't maybe at he was nowhere near the level, but because he knew how to word things, he knew how to come across as if just confidence, that he felt like he owned the room, and like having that ability to just I know it sounds crazy, but it's like in a way it's sort of like a performance. Obviously the main thing is be yourself. Like, that's the, at the end of the day, that's the only thing that matters. Because like if you're you, then obviously like that's you don't want to be fake. You have to be yourself. But because he showed the confidence, because he showed what he was like, that then obviously the employer was like, yo, this person shows that he's passionate. He or she shows that they're passionate, and you could tell it was the type of person that they would want to work with. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, be yourself, but you never lie. You don't ever want to lie in an interview and say, "Oh, I can deliver X, Y, and Z," and then when they employ you, you obviously can't. I think it's a braver decision, and probably one that's more respected if you say, "Hey, look, hands up, I'm not the best modeler in the world, but here's what I can do for you, and I'm willing to learn. And if you invest in me, so to speak, imagine if it's like Dragon's Den, invest in me, and this is what I can do, and I'll obviously work to improve in my weaknesses."
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great way to put it, because like I don't know, it's like a lot of people have this sort of impression that all these studios are just like the interviews are just going to be like constant pressure. Obviously there is some cases that maybe the interviewer isn't the greatest. Maybe they're nervous too. Like, maybe they're quite shy. Like, not everyone's going to be like always confident. Obviously it's great to come across an interviewer who's very laid back and chill and super easy to get on with him. It just makes the whole process smoother. But it's like your point there, just being honest with yourself, because so many people think that they need to know everything, and it's not the case. It's you start learning the pipeline of the studio when you start, and that's, I assume that's a thing that, like, obviously you need to know the fundamentals, and you have to have a good foundation to at least like be able to work with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say to people listening who are, have interviews coming their way, or their students have just graduated, or you've been applying for a while, you 100% do not need to know everything to do with environment art. Obviously, if you have a broad understanding and you can showcase that understanding through your portfolio, that you have all of these skills, then amazing. Like, the more the merrier. But we're humans. We're not art machines. It takes time to learn and produce these things, especially if it's not covered at university, or you've not. Self-learning is tough.
Yeah.
And you're never going to be spoon-fed at uni, and I understand that. But these things take time, so you're not always going to be able to cover everything yourself. And I mean, I've just thought of a really good example at uni. We had our kind of like mid-season presentations about our games and stuff, and I remember this guy stepped up, and he was a shy guy, but the way he presented himself wasn't the best, and the lecturer picked up on this, and so as a rundown, the guy was like, "Here's my level. This is really bad. I'm really embarrassed to be standing here. Everyone else's was so good. Oh, here's this part. That's really bad. That could be better." And the lecturer just stopped him and said, "Look, this isn't a thrilling presentation. You're not selling this at all. Even if it is technically dreadful, this is not the way you present yourself. Categorically, never do this again." And that was huge, I think, learning point for him and for everyone in the class, to say, if you're presenting something negatively, it's going to be perceived negatively.
Yep.
Even if you think what you've got and what you've done is awful, if you present it that way, of course everyone's going to think it's awful, because you don't believe in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And you can always put a positive spin on anything, I think. Even if it, if you produce something shocking, you can say, well, hey, look, under these circumstances might not have been the best. Yeah, time management was off, that's on me. I could have put more effort into this, but here's what I have done, and here's what I can do, and you go from there. Awesome. I think it's all about the mindset.
Yeah, before we move on to the next question, I just want to say one last thing. So I was watching, I'm not sure if you've seen it, so this is so awesome. So I'll put the link in the comment, in the description, below. So there's a really good beatboxer, he's from Brisbane. He did a TEDx talk about him doing beatboxing and stuff, and oh my gosh, is the guy, like, he's like such a great performer, if you know what I mean, and he comes across as so positive. And do you know, like, when people are like musicians and they have a hard crowd, like a difficult crowd to kind of get going, if you know what I mean? Like, it's sometimes it just takes like a subtle, maybe a wee bit of a joke or a wee bit of humor or something different, just to kind of I guess, the ice. Yeah, exactly. And the guy was like, so he had his main sort of I don't know what you call it, I don't do beatbox, but he had like his main sort of he was going for it, like he was proper like energetic, and it was awesome. But the thing that kind of switched everything up was he brought back a classic. So he brought Michael Jackson, one of the main songs, and everything switched. And then instantly, so he made it so short, like it was literally like, I don't know, 5 seconds of doing a Michael Jackson beatbox, and then he said a joke instantly after, and then everyone in the crowd started laughing, and everyone started like just chilled, and it was awesome. Like that was literally just an opening, opening minute of him doing his main TEDx talk. And when you're doing a presentation, for example, I always say every podcast when I talk about presentations, I always go first. Because I simply enjoy it, and I like to I hate delaying thing. I don't like the delaying feeling, or like having to wait to like, oh, I have to wait now till maybe like everyone always tries to go last, and I'm like, no, that's the worst idea possible. Definitely not go last. But like my point here is that try and find something that makes it easier for you. So if there's something, whether it's the way you stand, whether it's the way is there something that makes you more comfortable? Do you need to look at something? Do you need someone to be in the room with you? Does even having a friend being at the at the slide, switching the slides, make it more comfortable? You just knowing that they're there, and that's just what the main thing I want to say about presentation, because it's so important.
Just know yourself.
Exactly.
Know yourself. Before
I start rambling on and repeating myself, that is a great way to summarize it. Right. So the next one. Right. So this is the debatable question. The big finale question that I always bring up. That I always wonder what the senior artists are thinking when I ask this question at times. Would you recommend uni or online courses if you had a choice? Obviously, you have your own journey and stuff, but what's your side on the question?
Know yourself.
Know yourself again. Awesome.
Know yourself
Next
again.
question.
I mean, it literally just depends on who you are.
Definitely.
I think it's tough for me because if I'd known exactly I wanted to do environment art 3 years ago, I might have thought second about going to uni.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, I can't deny what uni kind of brought to my life in terms of the people I met and making friends and even the parties and living with other people and having that independence away from home. I think that's really, really important.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. That's one of the main reasons why I wanted to go. You can if you're sweet sitting at home doing art for 8 hours a day and learning online and chatting to people through the internet, then I think online learning can be amazing for you. You can learn from industry professionals who are doing it now, 2019,
Mm-hmm.
June, July, as opposed to people who have done it maybe 10, 15 years ago who are in the academic system now. If you can learn from the source, then that's the best place to learn, essentially.
Awesome.
But I mean, yeah, what you don't get out of online learning is meeting people face to face and having that kind of, if you haven't moved out of home even for a short time, then I think that period for many people can be really, really beneficial. I know it was for me, and people I've spoken to have said, look, I wouldn't be the person who I am today if I kind of never went to uni.
Same.
I think they can be life-changing experiences, aside from all the education stuff.
Yeah.
In the games industry, if you're looking to live and work abroad, I've heard that degrees can be useful for attaining visas.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I know this is, I've always considered that. It's always been a dream of mine to work and live abroad.
Awesome.
So I knew kind of from the get-go that having a degree could be useful.
Yeah.
And one thing that probably most people don't touch upon, being from the art side of stuff, is for me, the writing skills that I developed at uni, whereby we had to do written reports after kind of every other module, 2,000 summary on this and an evaluation and a critique of your own work. And then obviously we had our big dissertations at the end, 10,000 word white paper. And I never really enjoyed writing, particularly growing up. I said this on the Game Dev discussion podcast with Alex.
Awesome. By the way, everyone who's tuning in, before we continue, everyone who's listening, go give Alex a subscribe. I'll show his button right now. Go check out his link. On you go.
Alex is great. But I was saying to him, I never actually, because he asked me about my writing, and I said I never really enjoyed writing at school.
Right.
Same with art, really. I tried and did, got my B's grades at school and whatever. But I never really enjoyed it until I found something that I enjoyed thinking about and talking about, and then eventually writing about. So I think that for someone who is always interested in stuff and always wants to talk about and think about ideas, for me, writing's kind of part of the skill set now.
Yeah.
So expect blog posts every now and then from me, just
Awesome.
because I enjoy writing now.
Make sure to check out if he does.
But then again, I wouldn't have had those skills or maybe even the interest if I'd never went to uni.
I'm actually glad you brought this up, because this is something that I've always kind of argued against. So every time I've done the podcast, the main reason why I've tended to kind of go against the whole idea of teaching when it comes to the writing aspect is just the amount. And obviously, it's good to write, and I highly respect it. And when I did my when I was doing my honours and all my time through uni, I couldn't accept anything lower than A. It's simply just I couldn't. But I'm glad I no longer have that mindset, because it wasn't healthy. But when it comes to the writing aspect, obviously like there's so much research that you learn through it. It's great for just, I guess, like speaking skills and stuff, and just your knowledge overall. Like reading's one of my favorite. Like I love reading, so it's obviously they're pretty similar. But if I had to change things, the one thing I wish is that they just reduced it, if that makes sense. Like I just think there's still too much. Like I understand the blog bits, like, so blogs are great, and I always used to use Tumblr for blogs and stuff and doing reports for my projects. But I just wish when it came to maybe like the dissertation stuff, there just wasn't so many thousands of words, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a benefit to being able to write concisely, and I think dissertations can be 10,000 words. Like
yeah,
I'll make a point and then fill it with waffle, and that's obviously not the best. But I can appreciate if you're doing an art course, the last thing you want to be doing is writing, because you don't need to do it at work in the industry.
Exactly.
I've not written a thing. Well, that's a lie. I have written stuff down, but I don't have to submit any kind of writing. Whereas if you're a design student, then you're writing lengthy documentation about the narrative of the game or flows or these kind of things. So if you're a design student, then writing is probably quite important. But then I earlier I did a little breakdown of the benefit of online learning, and it's just the most cost-effective solution to getting into the industry. So for a fee of £45,000, which is a 3 years at university plus living costs and stuff, that's the rough figure it probably usually comes to, is £45,000 in the UK.
Yeah.
I know it's different in Scotland and abroad, and by the way, lucky you.
Woo! I'm so sorry.
But for £45,000, you can take that and spend it on 4,500 Gumroad tutorials that cost £10 a pop.
Jeebus, yeah.
Or alternatively, you can subscribe to the Gnomon Workshop for 112 years and 6 months. Or you can, with your £45,000, you can join or be a part of or pay for 55 CGMA courses that cost up to the value of $1,000 US. So that's just to put it into perspective of, if you had that money and you had uni in one hand and online learning in the other, that's the cost-effective side of things. That's what you can get with that money if you stayed at home and learned online.
You make me feel bad now. I didn't ever think about that. No, I'm really glad you said. Wow, gee whiz, right? Okay, that was that hit me hard.
But like, imagine, you think Gumroad tutorials are amazing because they are cheap, and if you've got guys like Daniel Tiger and the Substance guys in particular, or
like Josh Lynch,
is it Jonas Ronengard, and all these people who are putting out environments and packs and brushes, and their levels out online for what, £10-15?
Yeah, it's
That's
mental.
Dirt cheap compared to the amount of hours that they've put into making that kind of content. We're so lucky to be able to have that as a resource, and I think you can't take that into account. You can't not take that into account when you bring up the uni versus online learning argument.
That's why I bring it up. I know it's such, like, I'm not sure, like this is me, like, I'll just open up to you when it comes to the questions. What's your thoughts on the questions that I ask when it comes to the podcast? Like, just, do you think, like, for example, is there any other questions that maybe you think I should start raising? Because, like, obviously the main reason why I ask that sort of debatable question at the end is because it makes kind of people think, and it kind of gets it makes you start thinking about, if you have to, like, say if you're in a difficult situation, then you have to really start thinking smart. So
yeah, I mean, I have one question that's probably not, well, I'll just tell you, is it ethical to charge people £45,000 for 3 years of quote unquote education and then have them pay it off for the rest of their lives?
Yeah, I just don't get it.
Is it for some people that's, you categorically cannot go because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
And I know in America it's even worse, and especially in America and other places of the world, you have to pay for health insurance and other costs that you might not even have over here in the UK. So online learning is a no-brainer. Internet access is what, £30 a month.
Yeah.
And if you're living at home, if you're of that age, then you're probably not paying that anyway. So,
Like,
yeah, I mean that's it.
no, I'm really glad you asked it, because it's like, I know it's for a lot of people it's a hard it's not easy to always know like what's the best route. Like, nobody does, there's no such thing as the best route. Like, there's obviously an easier route, but there's no such thing as like the best route. But there's a lot of things that I guess people don't realize that are actually quite obvious. Like a lot of people naturally overthink things, or they, well, obviously, well, not everyone. Obviously, there's people who are very logical thinking, or they're very smart with decision making, etc. But when it comes to like this is actually an interesting question. So one of my viewers asked, this is the first time I don't know why I never thought about this. I've talked about it maybe briefly in one of the podcasts, but it was something I never really thought in depth. So he actually asked me what was the best way, what was the best advice you could give for a student trying to go from secondary school to college or university. And like, this was a whole different perspective. Like, I was like, I wish what they were teaching in secondary school was like less sort of like, I wish they kind of introduced the decision of about going to uni in the earlier years rather than just the final year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, at that particular age, you're still developing. There's no, for 99% of people, you won't have a clue what you want to do, because you're still young and learning and growing and goofing around. So I don't think having such a hefty financial decision, even for people at our age, or aged 18. I know we're slightly older, but I think it's university used to be for the elite academics, like the top 10% of the classes, and you'd go to university for things like becoming a doctor or a lawyer, or I don't know, biochemical engineering, or something crazy like that. So the really high level, high earning specialization careers. But now uni, and this is a whole nother debate, because it's so accessible. That's great, because it means more people have access to education, but then at the same time, for the cost and for the value that you get in return, is it worth it for various career paths, let's say?
Definitely, because
I mean, I think for us, sorry to cut you off, but I think for us, in our, we come from games and film and stuff. It's a technical field, so growing up, we've always grown up with the internet and stuff like that, and I think in our industry we have a deep appreciation for the benefit of spending time on the internet and learning from people through the internet, even socializing through the internet. Whereas some career paths are much more traditional. So I can 100% understand why you'd go to an institution to learn from people in a more traditional manner.
Yeah.
But times are changing and everything's on the internet now, and even for some of those more traditional fields, it's like, well, you might jump on lynda.com and you have courses for business and economics, or languages, or whatever it might be. But more and more people are taking to the internet to learn, but also to teach at an affordable price, and I don't think university can compete with it. And it wouldn't surprise me if you have a kind of collapse of the education system because it's just too expensive.
Yeah. Like I'm really glad. So you've actually touched on the point I was going to make. So, so one of my future guests, I won't say his name because it will spoil it. So, I've got kind of like a guy who's mentored me for many years. He's one of he worked on all the Disney films, like the classics. He's one of the main people in charge of like Tarzan. And wow. I can't wait to bring him on. But I don't want to spoil anything. But he said one really point, a really crazy point that's so true that you've kind of touched on there. So he thinks a lot the student education system's pretty much like, I know it's not. I know, like, for example, the teachers are not like for example, all my teachers, they're amazing. So if you're listening right now, you're legends, and you guys are awesome. But when it came to what he said, so I had a 2-hour Skype session. We were just talking about student education and what his thoughts are on universities are, and he's really against universities because he personally thinks they're designed to pretty much highlight. This is a bold statement, but I also see where he's coming from. So, but basically what he said was that universities are designed to put you into an education to pay more money just to highlight that there's no actual jobs. So basically, like
a buffer almost.
Yeah, so like you're or like I don't know, you're getting chucked. So basically, you're getting told to go somewhere else for money, and then you're like obviously still trying to find your career path and stuff, or passion, but you're not realizing in your head that you've just spent like 50 grand. Obviously, it depends on where you're from and that, but like because we're going to really go into depth about this sort of like how much unis have to change in the sense that like for example Germany, amazing place. I'm really glad what they've done with their education system. Like it should be free in the sense that like I understand maybe certain schools shouldn't be free, or like certain things that maybe are like safety based or whatever, I don't know, but like some things you just have to spend money. It makes sense. Like money just has to be a part of it's part of life. It's simple as that. But
yeah,
there's some things that you're just like, where on earth did they get that number for? Especially if maybe like if the teachers are really bad. Like you're just like, I've like for example, one of my friends, I won't say his name just in case. One of my friends, there was a course that I think it was like 80 grand, and he learnt nothing, and now he's in crazy money debt. And it's like, why? If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I'm always weighing up the options. So now I'm going to flip back onto the pro uni side, whereas it's like what you put in is what you get out. So I said this before, but if you don't supplement uni with extracurricular work, and this is a shame in a way because you shouldn't be spending 45 grand for 3 or 4 years of education and then have to go home and do more work on top of it just to break into the industry. I think that's bonkers. And I think a lot of that stems from this kind of homework culture where even in primary school and secondary school you'd be given tons and tons of homework and you wouldn't almost have a life because all you're doing is you go to school, spend your day learning, and then you come home and then you learn more, and you've got little time to eat, sleep, socialise, grow, exercise, everything. But unfortunately it's true, if you don't put in the effort at home and if you're not building portfolio and doing as much as you can outside of uni, then you may have a hard time breaking in. Awesome. Unfortunately.
Yeah,
I mean that's at least my perspective because that's what happened to me. I didn't, so I bossed it. Oh, that sounds dreadful. I did well at university and I spent a lot of time putting hard work and effort into my modules for uni, but when I was done with the work I wouldn't go home and try and learn any extra bits just because I thought hopefully I can fall back on this degree and get a job. I genuinely believed it was enough until I finished and then knew which way I wanted to specialise in and realised actually to get this particular job I've got to start from scratch. I have to be building a portfolio and I have to know all of these 101 different parts of the pipeline, which unfortunately wasn't covered at uni. It's such a tough topic because it's not straightforward, it's not black and white, it's so multifaceted, and it also depends on who you are as a person and if financially it's the best decision for you.
Yeah, because like before we finish the podcast, we'll leave it on a good positive note. Because like I said all the time, I was really fortunate where I went, and but I always made the most of it. I'm one of those people that I always live life with no regrets. I know it sounds maybe quite obvious, but
regrets.
I genuinely don't have any regrets. Like I've always made sure to do it the way that I feel is right. So if I've had to work my butt off, I've worked as hard as everyone. I've always made sure to, I always had the mindset to outwork everyone. And then because of that mindset, I then had to learn when I finished uni to then work smart, and then learning how to socialise. So you learn through all this journey, but it's through the doing that then develops and you grow. And it's all about you nailed it when you said about you have to put the time in, you have to be committed. There's so many things that a lot of my classmates, so I've studied everywhere in Scotland, literally, and a lot of the classmates over the years, they didn't take advantage of all the things they had up for grabs, and because they didn't acknowledge all these amazing things such as sides courses, literally just asking a lecturer a question when they said that ask me anytime, they didn't take advantage of that. All the tools, like if you have lots of tools available, they didn't use that. Like we had a whole green screen room in our university, like a huge green screen room, and like literally only one person used that, maybe that I recall in my year, and there'd be a lot of people at the end of the year being like, oh, I didn't get taught what I should have been taught, and I was like, well, you should have put the time in. I should have asked the questions that you wanted to get asked. I just said I was going to leave this as a positive note. What am I doing wrong here?
Well, here's a positive. I've got some for you.
Right, on you go. You close it.
So, go to university, and if you've got the fire to come home and you're gassed and you want to continue, building a portfolio and doing work, then uni is a great place because often they offer you student licenses, which are next to always free. So these Autodesk subscriptions and Substance and stuff. Unreal Engine's free, same with Unity, which is amazing. It's excellent for students. If you've invested in a course, make sure you grab your hands on those licenses for 2, 3, 4 years, however long you can get them for, because they are expensive, and when you're done, you're done. You have to start paying. So that's one thing, one great thing about uni, because they introduce you to these kind of tools for free, if you want to put that in quotes, because obviously you're still paying for the course and to access those. But also, if you're not working the hardest and you're not the strongest, you're not the best in the class, and that's fine. Everyone's different. You play to your strengths and do your best to make up for your weaknesses. But if you're all of those things, then show up, show your face, say hello, bare minimum, say hello and talk to people, because you never know, just by saying good morning to someone every single day going into uni and saying hello and making sure you're polite to people, that might just open up an opportunity down the road, and all of a sudden you have this, you're in. You might not be the best artist or best designer and programmer in the world, but basic courtesies and friendliness and being sociable goes a hell of a long way, and I think it's underrated.
Like, just to finish it off, so covering your point, so the first time me and Kieran talked to each other and stuff was we came across each other through John Griffiths, and so John Griffiths, I had him on the podcast, amazing guy, and so make sure to go check out John's work. He does a Twitch stream, and that's another thing, make sure to go check out John's Twitch stream. And I just said, because obviously I had a podcast with John the previous night, I said, hi John, how's it going and so forth, and then Kieran was in there as well, and he was like, oh, hi Ross, how you doing? And we just started talking for ages, and it's just like you never know who you'll meet or whoever you talk about, who you're talking to and stuff, but until you try, you won't find out.
Yeah, show up, show your face, be happy and sociable if you can be, and you never know what it might lead to, even just basic things like that.
Awesome. So thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been much appreciated. It's been awesome having you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, Ross. Thanks.
And like I said, everyone, make sure to check out his work and give him a follow. If you're new to the podcast, don't forget to subscribe. We are so close in 2,000 subscribers. We're 69 away, I think, or 68 away. So we're getting there, and it'll be much appreciated. If you have any questions, leave a comment in the comments below. And remember, as always, share your art links, because I will showcase them on the podcast. Just put it in ArtStation. Doesn't matter whatever level you are, just always give it a chance. You never know. And but till next time, we will see you in the next video. Bye for now.
Bye.